Okay, so today, let's dive into something a little creepy crawly today.
Oh.
And I know you're probably thinking, ugh, pests.
Right?
Who wants to talk about that?
Yeah.
But trust me, this is about way more than just those annoying flies buzzing around your fruit bowl.
Right.
We're talking about how these tiny creatures can actually be serious health hazards.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
We often focus on just the nuisance factor of pests,
Right.
but the connection to disease transmission is something that I think deserves a much closer look.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today. We've got a stack of research articles here
Right.
and even a podcast episode all about this fascinating and sometimes unsettling link between pests and the spread of diseases.
And what's really fascinating is the sheer diversity
Yeah.
of pests that can act as vectors for disease.
Oh.
We're talking about everything from like rodents to mosquitoes, flies,
Yeah.
cockroaches, ticks.
Wow.
It's like a whole ecosystem
Okay.
capable of carrying and transmitting pathogens.
Hold on. Vectors.
Right.
I think we need like a quick definition here
Of course, yeah.
for people who may not know.
So a vector is simply any living organism that can transmit a disease-causing agent.
Okay.
So think of it
Got it.
like a tiny delivery system
Okay.
for bacteria or viruses or even parasites.
Okay. So it's not just about
Right.
getting bitten by a mosquito.
Exactly.
These pests can spread disease in a bunch of different ways.
Exactly.
Some bite us directly,
Yeah.
while others might contaminate our food,
Mm-hmm.
or even the air we breathe.
Exactly. Take cockroaches, for example.
Okay.
Those people just think they're gross.
Right.
They just want them out of their kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
But they can actually spread things like salmonella and E. coli through food contamination.
Yeah. Food poisoning is definitely not on my to-do list.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there are even more serious diseases
Yeah.
that can be spread by pests.
Absolutely. We've got the big names that everyone's heard of.
Okay.
Malaria, West Nile virus,
Uh-huh.
Lyme disease,
Okay.
even hantavirus.
Wow.
Each of these diseases has its own unique way of being transmitted.
So let's talk about how this transmission actually happens.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious about the mechanics of it all. You
Yeah.
know what's going on at a microscopic level?
Well, let's start with mosquito bites.
Okay.
When a mosquito bites you,
Uh-huh.
it injects saliva into your skin.
Right.
And that saliva can contain pathogens.
Wow.
So it's not just sucking your blood.
Right.
It's also leaving behind a little something extra.
Okay, so basically every time a mosquito bites, it's like a
Yeah.
tiny syringe
Right.
injecting whatever pathogens
Yeah.
it might be carrying.
Uh-huh.
Yikes.
And then we have ticks,
Uh-huh.
which are a whole other level of creepy.
Right.
They latch onto your skin
Uh-huh.
and actually insert a feeding tube to draw blood.
Okay.
If that tick is carrying the bacteria that causes Lyme disease,
Yeah.
those bacteria can enter your bloodstream through that feeding tube.
So ticks are basically giving you a tiny unwanted blood transfusion,
Yeah.
but instead of healthy blood,
Right.
they're injecting you with bacteria.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to get the heebie-jeebies here.
It's definitely not a pleasant thought.
No.
And then there are those cockroaches and flies we were talking about.
Right.
They're notorious for hanging out in less than sanitary places,
Right.
picking up bacteria and other pathogens.
Uh-huh.
And then they can spread those pathogens to our food by simply walking over it.
And that's where those foodborne illnesses come from.
Exactly.
It's not always about improper food handling. Sometimes it's about these tiny intruders contaminating our food without us even realizing it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
Some pests don't even need to bite you to make you sick.
Oh, wow.
Take rats, for example.
Yeah.
They can spread diseases like hantavirus
Right.
through their droppings, urine, and saliva.
Wow.
You don't even need to be bitten to get sick.
So even if a rat doesn't actually bite you,
Right.
just being in an area
Yeah.
where they've been hanging out
Exactly.
could be enough to expose you to hantavirus.
That's right. Their waste can contaminate surfaces,
Okay.
and those tiny particles can become airborne,
Right.
especially in enclosed spaces like
Okay.
attics or basements.
Speaking of enclosed spaces,
Yeah.
the research actually mentions that hantavirus can be particularly risky in places like that.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Attics and basements are often poorly ventilated
Right.
and left undisturbed for long periods.
Okay.
This creates the perfect environment
Mm-hmm.
for hantavirus particles
Uh-huh.
to linger in the dust.
Okay.
If you're cleaning those spaces
Yeah.
and stir up that dust,
Right.
you could be inhaling those particles without even realizing it.
That's
Yeah.
pretty unsettling thought. It's like this hidden danger lurking in the dust bunnies.
Exactly.
So we've covered different types of pests, how they spread disease,
Yeah.
and some specific examples.
Right.
Now I think it's time to talk about red flags.
Sure.
What are some signs that should make us think,
Okay.
hey, this might be more than just a minor pest problem.
Uh-huh.
I need to take this seriously.
Absolutely. First and foremost,
Okay.
any signs of pests themselves are a red flag.
Okay.
Droppings, dead insects,
Yeah.
unexplained bites on your skin.
Right.
These are all clues that you might have an infestation.
Okay. So visual cues are important.
Yeah.
What about symptoms?
Okay.
Are there any specific symptoms that might point to a pest-related illness?
That can be tricky because the symptoms vary
Right.
depending on the disease.
Sure.
But let's say it's mosquito season,
Okay.
and you certainly develop an unexplained fever
Yeah.
or flu-like symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a sign of a mosquito-borne illness,
Yeah.
like West Nile virus.
So paying attention to the context and the timing is key.
Exactly.
What about if I've seen cockroaches in my kitchen?
Yeah.
Are there any specific signs that they
Hello.
might be contaminating my food?
Keep an eye out for any unusual spikes in foodborne illnesses or allergic reactions.
Mm-hmm.
If things seem to be getting worse
Right.
after you've seen those cockroaches,
Yeah.
it's a strong indicator that they could be the culprit.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is all pretty sobering stuff.
Yeah,
It sounds like prevention is absolutely crucial here.
absolutely.
What are some steps people can take
Okay.
to minimize their risk?
The basics are always a good starting point.
Okay.
Maintaining good hygiene,
Uh-huh.
sealing up any cracks or crevices
Yeah.
where pests can enter your home,
Okay.
storing food properly,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping your living spaces clean and clutter-free
Right.
can go a long way.
But sometimes those basic steps aren't enough, right?
You're absolutely right.
Especially if you're dealing with a more serious infestation.
If you have a significant infestation,
Right.
especially with something like rats or mosquitoes,
Yeah.
it's often best to call in professional help.
Okay.
They have the tools and expertise
Yeah.
to tackle the problem effectively and safely.
Right.
And remember, it's not just about reacting to an infestation.
Mm-hmm.
It's about preventing them in the first place.
Okay. Yeah, it really feels like we've shifted our perspective from like, oh, there's a bug, to wait a minute,
Right.
pests can actually pose a real threat to my health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this deep dive so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about learning about pests
Right.
for the sake of knowing.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how they can impact our well-being
Right.
and then using that knowledge to protect ourselves.
It makes you start looking at your surroundings with a new awareness. Like,
Right.
what could be lurking in those corners?
Exactly.
I haven't cleaned in a while.
Right.
It's a little unsettling, to be honest.
That's understandable,
Yeah.
but it's also empowering.
Yeah.
Once you're aware of the potential risks,
Mm.
you can start taking steps to mitigate them.
Right.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
So what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with today? What's the most important takeaway from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is to be observant and proactive.
Okay.
Take a look around your own environment.
Yeah.
What seemingly harmless creatures might be present in your home or neighborhood?
Right.
Are there any potential risks that you haven't considered before?
Okay.
And remember, this deep dive is just the starting point.
Right.
The real journey is applying this knowledge to your own life
Yeah.
and taking steps to protect yourself and your loved ones.
That's a great point. It's time to take off the blinders and see the world
Yeah,
and our homes with a new awareness.
for sure.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of pests and disease. It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And I hope it's done the same for you.
Me too.
Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be exploring. Okay. Well, that's a surprise for next time.